Well, perhaps it's time to start. I say welcome to all of you to this BUP webinar series on ESD at universities. This is already the third time, and we have one more left for next month. My name is Cecilia Lundberg, and I represent BUP Finland and Åbo Akademi University. And we arrange these webinars in cooperation with Uppsala University, both with the Svedest, Swedish International Center for Education for Sustainable Development at Uppsala University, and the headquarters of BUP, Baltic University Programme at Uppsala. This and also the two before webinars are recorded and available on the BUP YouTube channel afterwards. You can, and I also encourage you to visit BUP websites for information of BUP activities. But now over to today's keynote. Please, Shepard.
Thank you very much, Cecilia. I would like to welcome everybody to this webinar. It is my pleasure this afternoon to introduce to you Ulrika Persson-Fischier. Ulrika is a colleague of mine at Uppsala University, but she is working from campus Gotland on an island called Gotland in the Baltic Sea. I think most of you know that. Ulrika is working in the Department of Civil Engineering and Industrial Engineering, but her main work at Uppsala is in the School of Entrepreneurship and Research in Sustainable Destination. She has got a variety of interests. Her background actually spans quite wide. Her background includes anthropology, environmental history, sustainability and corporate social responsibility, ecological economics, entrepreneurship. The list can go on. I will just mention those two. Her current interest is in entrepreneurship, risk and uncertainty. And she is teaching and researching in sustainable destinations with special reference to the hospitality industry and how to achieve sustainability in society in places like Gotland, where there are many foreign visitors that come in, especially in summer. Of course, during the time when we didn't have COVID. She will talk today about education as a driver for sustainability, transformation of university and society, the case of a master program at Campus Scotland. I think for now, I will end there. Over to you, Ulrika.
Thank you very much, Shepard, for this great introduction, and thank you for the invitation to present here at this seminar. Yes, Shepard, I have a variety of research interests, maybe also relevant to some of you attending this seminar today. I wrote my thesis based on a fieldwork in Siberia in Russia, so I have also that kind of interest. But as you say, Shepard, now I devote most of my time to sustainable destination development, both in terms of research and education, and that is what I am going to talk about here. And now I will share my screen for my presentation. I hope you can see. If not, please let me know. So I'm going to talk about education as a driver for sustainability transformation of university and of society, and will use the case of a master program at Campus Gotland, the master program which I am the manager of. So it is a program that I have created and am now running. So the agenda for today is, first I will talk a little bit about this case, and then I will say a few words on what I think this case is a case of. Why is this interesting for the question of the role of education for societal transformation. And I will go into one particular example, and in the end, I will give you some tips for those of you who might yourselves be interested in trying to do some of the things that I am trying to do. So first of all, Campus Gotland. So like Shepard said, Campus Gotland is a campus of Uppsala University, but not placed in Uppsala on the mainland of Sweden, but in the Baltic Sea, so in the middle of the Baltic. So it's very far away from the other main campuses of Uppsala University. Myself, I have a long history working at Uppsala University in Uppsala. I still live in Uppsala, I am in Uppsala now, but since Campus Gotland became part of the Uppsala University 5 years ago, I've been working more and more on Campus Gotland. And the reason why I really like this is that it is a very different environment than the other campuses at Uppsala University. It is a very interdisciplinary environment, so you are very close to your colleagues. It's very easy to do things together with others. So most of the things you do naturally becomes interdisciplinary, which is not at all as easy at a big university in Uppsala. Also, as I will tell you, sustainability, sustainable development, and sustainable futures has become a focus on what we work with on Gotland. Very much thanks to the presence of Swedes there, I would say. So those are, and in addition, we also work very closely in collaboration with the surrounding societies. So these three aspects is what I really enjoy working on Campus Gotland. So it has become a locus for sustainability. And this slide I actually took from the university main presentation. So Uppsala University actually market Campus Gotland as a place where we do research on sustainable development. But not only research, also education. So we have many master programs relating to sustainability. The program that I developed, Sustainable Destination Development. We also have sustainable management, sustainable heritage, energy transition, wind power, etc. We are developing now also bachelor courses and a new PhD school with the focus on sustainable development has also just started. So sustainability is really the main focus of what we do there. And most of us researchers are interested in this. So I had the opportunity to develop a new master program in sustainable destination development. This is a picture also used in the Uppsala University main presentation slide. These are my students, but in their presentation, this is presenting the humanities and social sciences, which is not really correct representation of our program because it is interdisciplinary, spanning from humanities and social science, but also into engineering, where I myself work. So I was very fortunate to be able to develop this program on my own from scratch. So I was really able to implement Education for Sustainable Development, ESD, into the program. Now we have 72 students enrolled in this 1 or 2 year master program. It's international and all continents of the world are actually represented in the program. Only about 10% of the students are Swedish. So it is really a global class. And this heterogeneity in the student group is a real asset in the class. It is an interdisciplinary program, so teachers come from a variety of disciplinary backgrounds, spanning from humanities to engineering, so it is very interdisciplinary. We have tried to implement ESD in the core of the program so that sustainability is not just a cherry on the top that you put on your just usual education, but rather to try to make a completely new cake where sustainability is ingrained in everything. So we don't have a special course on sustainable development, but sustainability is part of all the courses that we have. And collaboration with society is at the heart of what we do. This is a chart of some tools if you want to implement education for sustainable development that maybe you know of, and which I have used in my program and when we have developed the program. So maybe you know the idea about competences for sustainability, system thinking, anticipatory competence, normative, strategic, and interpersonal competence. So these are learning outcomes in the program and in the courses. We also try to use methods that encourage transformative learning, as you can see here down to the left, and combining concepts from social science and natural science. So this is what we have tried to do in the program, to integrate sustainability and ESD within the whole program in this way. And what I am going to talk about specifically here is one course in the program, which is called Projects in Multidisciplinary Teams. And this course comes in the middle of the program. So the students have been studying different courses, and they have chosen different specializations, different tracks, ranging from entrepreneurship to nature-based tourism to heritage tourism. And then they work in groups in this course, students who have taken different tracks and therefore have different competences. And they work with real sustainability challenges that local stakeholders contribute with to the course. So that is from businesses, from authorities, from organizations, from anything that is related to destination development on Gotland. So the course is that the students basically use their theoretical knowledge to solve some practical sustainability challenge. So this is the case here, and I'm going to soon introduce one example from this course to you. But first, what is this case a case of? Why is this interesting? Why is this part of how education can contribute to societal transformation for sustainability, in my view? To help me to discuss this, I have turned to help from an article by Jan Maslayan. I'm sure I do not pronounce his name correctly. In a recent article, Turning a City into a Milieu of Study. You can see the reference here. So in this article, he refers to Latour and the assumption of what education is for, that he argues is present, and I would agree with him, as the trickle-down epistemology, the assumption of the trickle-down. So basically, the idea that university is based upon and reproduce is that education and pedagogy is kind of the last step of what we do. So basic research, that's the main thing that we do. Then maybe we do some collaboration with society, kind of giving them the results of our research. And then we also take the knowledge we produce in research and we kind of give that to the students. So basically, education is the last step in this process. And the main idea is that the important stuff happens within the research at the university. Now, what Maslayan and Latour argue for in this article, which I very much agree with, is that we need a radical reorientation. So what used to be called the extension, outreach, or pedagogy can no longer be seen as the last, but the first front line. So rather than seeing that the pedagogy is the consequence of the very important knowledge making going on at university, pedagogy and education in itself is the front line, and that is where the important knowledge making is done in collaboration with society. So the order, priority, and goals will have to be reversed. And this is what we're trying to do here, so that the meaning and form pedagogy takes when we do not reduce it to teaching and extension, but instead approach it as the genius and the locus of a nexus between public engagement and basic research. So turning it upside down, so the trickle-down epistemology rather being what is going on in education is really where the important knowledge making and the possibilities for transformations happens. So the example here we see two of my students, former students, Maraya and Carissa, and they were working on a case in this course. And this picture is from when they were participating in the local radio here on Gotland. So the challenge that they were working on, so Gotland, as maybe you know, is a very established tourist destination in the Baltic. And with the newly built cruise quay, many tourists come in the summer. And what may happen is that the cultural heritage becomes worn down by the many tourists. So the challenge that came from the local destination management organization to the course was that they wanted a code of conduct that is kind of set of rules for tourists, how to behave when they come to Visby, not to destroy the heritage. Now, my bright students, they kind of thought, well, having a set of rules, that's not very exciting. How are you going to make tourists want to do that? It's not fun, it's not engaging, it's not like positive. So they were thinking, okay, what we really want to do here is to make the tourists understand and relate to the heritage and to feel that they want to maintain it, want to contribute to it. So they kind of turned it around, and rather than a set of rules, they used storytelling. So they wanted to create a story of the heritage of Visby, where what we see here is the city wall was the narrator, that is the telling subject. So the wall was telling the story of its life and all the sustainability challenges that it was exposed to during its time. So they created this suggested walk for tourists around the city wall, where they could either read these stories or they could listen to them through an app. And through this, the tourists would then get engaged in the heritage and maybe also want to give some contribution to the maintenance of the heritage site. So this was the answer that the students gave to this challenge owner about this problem that tourists might destroy the heritage rather than protect it. And the result was overwhelming. So when the students presented this to the destination management organization, many companies were present there, and they were so impressed, and they all wanted to work with these students. And there was actually, as it turned out, a company working with digital maps for cruise tourists who wanted immediately to implement their idea into their app. So actually they realized this idea from the students the summer after this. And here we see that these students, they are presenting at Företagardagen, which is a day for all the companies on Gotland where they are presenting these ideas to them. So here you see the students talking to all the companies on Gotland. And here they are also presenting at an international research conference on Gotland. And not only did one of these companies got interested and wanted to implement this idea, also through what the students did, this company got in contact with the local heritage administration. And these two had never before been in contact, so they got a new collaboration going thanks to what the students did. And these kinds of collaborations are at the heart of what you need to work with if you want to develop destinations in a sustainable way. And they had been living together on Gotland and Visby for many years, but never met. But it was thanks to what the students did that they could do this. And it seems to me that when students come who are young and engaging and who have new ideas, it might even be easier for local stakeholders to get new contacts with one another. So it's very apparent that students can do a lot of work in this regard and really help the development of the destination. And this course that we are running, they are working with so many of these different challenges and sustainability projects on Gotland that they are starting to really transform the local society in this regard. So I think that I hope that this is an example of how pedagogy and teaching can become the front line for staging an approach to societal challenges that links basic research and public engagement. But it is really thanks to the students. It's not thanks to research. So it's really the students who can achieve this. Also important that reconsidering how we conduct teaching. We often think that what we should do is make it easy for students to learn, facilitate their learn. But by making them engage with the reality, we are actually complicating their learning, and we are exposing them and ourselves to the complicated reality. But this is also how they can really learn the sustainability competences of how to put their knowledge into practical use. So if you want to start some kind of this transformative education, what can you do? How did I do? Well, for me, two things have been important. First of all, to establish relationship locally and long-term relationships. That is, to create trust, to have this feeling that we are in this together. We are working with the same challenges here and we are doing it together, so that the local community feels that the university is not an isolated island, but it is really part of the local society and the local community, and that we feel a responsibility of doing this, and that we are not just short-term visitors, but that we are actually there in it together, and that they can influence what we do, so that we get away from this trickle-down epistemology that we are supposed to just deliver the results of what we do, but rather that they are part of formulating the agenda for what we are doing together. So I don't think it really matters who you are establishing these relationships with, as long as you are doing it and you are in it together, and that you let them influence the agenda for what you want to do together. And I had the opportunity to do this by developing a completely new program, so I could integrate it into the curricula in so it's very easy to run. But this can be done also, of course, in much more small scale. So in a given course, in a given education, you can also do it as a module, as a small part of something that is going on. It's important, of course, to allow lots of uncertainty in this, because when you invite others into the educational situation, of course, unexpected things will happen, and that is, of course, something that's really good for the learning, and it's good for what can happen, but it may be challenging for some rigid university systems. But establishing some kind of relationships with external actors, and then let them guide you in what you can do together. That would be my tip for how to start such a transformation. Thank you for listening to my presentation. If you would like to get in contact with me afterwards, this is my email address. And with this, I thank you very much, and I give the word back to the organizers, to Cecilia and Shepard. So I stop sharing my screen now. Thank you.
Thank you, Ulrika. Very interesting and very inspiring program. I was really eager to hear more details. And we have here at least one already in the chat. Would it be possible to get some reference to this wall project, articles, thesis, etc.? Is it asked here?
We haven't really written about this yet. So this course is a very practical course. So the end result is not a thesis of the students, but it's really a suggestion for the solution to a problem. So it's very, very hands-on. So I'm sorry, no, we don't have documented this yet.
I would like Ulrika to briefly describe how you assess these students, because it is such a lovely course. This is what we are looking for in as far as developing competencies. You are able to see what the students can do with what they have been learning. But may I ask you to just throw light on how you assess the students?
Thank you, Shepard. This is a very important question, and this is actually what pedagogical development that I am struggling with now, because not only for this course, but in general, I think that the university system for assessing, examination, grades, etc., does not easily fit within the ESD and the competences. It's partly because the assessment tools that we have, that is written assignments, different written assessment, do they really measure competences? How can we measure competences? It's also partly because the things you have to do to develop competences are usually done together with other people. So it's not individual, and grades need to be individual, so you need to assess them individually. It's also about the development of these competences is a process over time, and where the process and the development is very important, while examination usually assess only the end result. And since it is a kind of transformative process where I, as a teacher, I don't really have the answers of what is, because there isn't one single solution to this. So my role is not to be the expert who has the answer and can, in that sense, judge what is the best or the wrong answer for the students. So on a deep level, I think there is a very problematic situation there in assessing this. What we do in particular in this course now is that it's a pass-fail course, and to pass, the students have to go through the process. We use a process that is called design thinking through this course. So they have to deliver during the course in this different stage, and they have to do the end presentations where also the stakeholders are invited, so they have to present to them and also write a report from the process. And if they do that, then they are passed. But I think you're touching on something crucial here that I think is something we should work more on within ESD, and that is how to assess it. Thank you, Shepard, for a difficult question, which I didn't have a good answer to.
No, that's fine. It is good enough. Yeah.
Yeah, we have two questions, comments here from the chat also. Here is one. Have you seen any other types of successful projects from this course?
Yes, there are several. So last year, one group of students, they worked in a small region of in the middle of Gotland called Hemse. I'm not sure whether it was the actual suggestions of the students that really made things happen. I think it was the fact that the students were working there in this village that really made the people in that village come together and work on their issues. So just the fact that students come there have a very positive effect in itself. Another one was at the church in the middle of Visby, which had great problems when so many visitors come, because there are very few toilets in Visby. So there is a problem of where do all these tourists go to the bathroom, and many of them use the toilet in the church, and this didn't really, there wasn't a functional infrastructure for this. So the students came up with some ideas on how to solve this, which the church was very thankful for. But there are many other also such successful projects, not necessarily in terms of the actual solution the students present, but also just in the fact that they are working on this and doing it together. It kind of gives a new energy to the processes and the problems that are present.
And I was also thinking because the girls with the wall, they used storytelling as a method.
Yes.
Was it something that was included in the course, or was it something that they just used?
They found out, they came to the conclusion that this was needed. But of course, that was one element that we talk about in the more theoretical courses. Sorry. So they were able to implement that in a practical setting.
Here was also one question. Was this project supported only but the faculty or department, or the university administration as well? Any businesses were involved in the development stage? Question.
Yes. So the development of the program and this course has been supported by the department and by the university administration. So it's been a very smooth and easy process to establish this. And this, I think, is partly because it is on Campus Gotland, where sustainability education and sustainability research is so important. So there was no problems of integrating ESD into the curricula. And yes, companies were part of this as well. I am myself a researcher of sustainable destination development and had close contacts through that with local companies. So we did the development together with them as well, yes.
Here is another practical question. How to establish contact to the local actors and problems? How did you start?
Well, for me, it was based on my research on tourism on Gotland. So through that research, I came in contact with local actors. And I think already there, it's this issue about establishing trust, and that they feel that you are in it together, so that you do not approach them either with the attitude that you will study them and that's it, or that you want to deliver something to them, but that you want to work with the problem together and help each other in solving it. That is the core at this, to have this different mindset. So step out of this triple down epistemology and have a more collaborative approach to them. That's how to get them interested in this, because of course, I think there is also kind of a suspicion hesitance among actors. Why would we involve with the university? What's in it for us? There is nothing in it for us. And I think when you look at the history of research and of universities, this have often actually been the case. So in a sense, it's kind of up to us also to show them that there is something in this for you as well. We are in these sustainability challenges together. And if we join forces, if we do this together, maybe we can be more successful in finding solutions. So it's really to shift your own mindset is the start, I would say.
Here was also a question about saying, is the master's fully applied? How big is the share of research in the MA program? When do you expect to launch the PhD program you mentioned?
Yes, the master's is fully. It's not fully applied, no. It is a research program as well. So the students, they write 13 credit theses. So it's a mix of application and research. And that, I would say also in lots of the research that they do in their theses, they have a collaborative approach. So we don't see, in a sense, a strict division between the application and research. So research that is relevant is more engaging for students and for the local community. So that is what we tend to do. The PhD program started nearly 1 month ago on 15th of January. And one of the students that I showed a picture of, she is actually one of the PhD students who has started in this PhD program. So she has come into research. So we have 12 PhD students in this research school on sustainable development. And the idea is that it is interdisciplinary and working with local challenges on Gotland. So the whole idea with the research school is to devote to research that has local relevance.
And Shevar has a question here, which is also something that I was thinking about when I was working at the business school here at Akademi University, because when they are these more experimental courses with projects, then there are certainly a part of the university saying that this is not purely academic and this is more something for the polytechnics. So what were your challenges and how did you manage to that?
I experienced much fewer challenges than I expected. So I was very surprised that this was a very smooth process. Actually, I'm part of a network on tourism educations globally. And when I've been discussing with other similar programs around the world, I realized that I have been so lucky with this because they have tried to do small parts of what I did and have met with lots of resistance, but I didn't. Not at all. The university administration and management have been fully supportive, and there's been actually no challenges at all. And I think this is partly because Campus Gotland is so focused on sustainability. But the challenge is what you, Shepherd, have already touched upon, and that is when you come into the question of examination and grades, etc. So when it comes to what you do in the classroom, and when it comes to even curricula, there is no kind of problems or obstacles. But when you come to the assessment of this, that's where I have hit the wall, because then you need to really conform to rather rigid structures like we were discussing previously. So it is when we come to that, then there are challenges. Also, I would say for teachers, because also teachers want to feel that you can give a grade that is fair and just, and that you can explain to students why they get this grade and not that. And then we kind of tend to use the grading system and the examinations that we feel comfortable with, and not being able, for example, to give a grade more than pass-fail is sometimes uncomfortable for the teachers. So it's the grade seems also to be very much part of a kind of the identity of teachers. So that's really where I would say the challenges come. And I do not have a solution to this. We are working on it, and we are actually establishing discussions with the faculty on this. So we are working on it, and we may approach a situation where we can really maybe do experimental work also on this.
Perhaps that's part of the transition also.
Yes, yes, yes.
Here is one. What would you like to improve in sustainability at university? Your recommendation. It's a more broader question.
So I've been working with ESD for a very long time, even before we used the word sustainability, and surely before I met the concept ESD. And I am thrilled to see that in the last year, there seems to be like an explosion when it comes to education for sustainable development. And things that I have been trying to discuss for many years now, everyone is discussing it and doing it. And maybe in a sense, I'm fortunate to be in the engineering department where you educate professionals, because then it's kind of obvious that the students, they need to be able to deal with things like ethics, with sustainability, etc. So there is an openness of how to do this. What I think is the challenge is that as I see it, sustainability education and sustainability works really requires a truly interdisciplinary approach. That is, you need to simultaneously deal with technical knowledge, engineering knowledge, scientific knowledge, perspective from humanities, the social sciences, etc. And that is still, I would say, a challenge. The boundaries between the different parts of the universities, they are very high and very thick walls. So a truly interdisciplinary work, that is where I see the challenge.
Shepard has a question here. I think you can ask it. Do you want to ask it yourself?
Yeah, it is a comment that I would like you to describe in a little bit more detail how interdisciplinary teaching is working on Campus Gotland in your course, considering that these teachers are coming from different departments and usually they don't have the same objectives. The objectives are actually, it's not the same. And also that the time allocation that is devoted to this course, how does that work?
So I would say that just as sustainability is not a stage you can reach and then you're there, but a continuous path, interdisciplinarity is also not something you reach once and for all, but something you have to work with over and over and along the continuous path. So it's like a continuous struggle for all of us, and sometimes it works smoothly, sometimes we reach points where there are very different ideas on how to do things and why. Sometimes this is explicit, sometimes implicit, sometimes we know why we disagree, sometimes we can't really understand why we disagree. So this is really on many levels. I would say on Campus Gotland, since it is such a small environment, in administrative terms, it works rather well, I would say. It is possible. So it is maybe more in the interpersonal interactions and the actual teaching situation where it sometimes appears very clearly that we have very different points of departure and different assumptions that we are ingrained with from our disciplinary backgrounds. And so myself, I have a PhD in anthropology and now I work in the engineering department. So I am very used to being in different environments and have learned how to navigate this. But for some people, this is much more unusual. And again, I would say it's this issue of trust. If people feel that it's a safe environment, that they feel they can trust that they are not threatened in the situation, then it's much more easy to overcome your own assumptions on how things must be. But when there comes a situation, for example, if you fight for resources, which is very common at the university, right? We fight for limited resources, then you feel threatened and you don't feel trust, then it becomes even more important to defend your own little corner. So I would say to create these safe spaces and these trustful moments is really what enhances the possibilities and the willingness to kind of lower your guard and also to expose yourself and to say, okay, these are my actual assumptions about knowledge making, about what education is for, etc., and to show that and to be able to have a dialogue with people rather than a monologue. But it's not always easy, and it's something you need to work with continuously.
True. Here is one comment / question also. Do you see a danger in moving away too much from the normal types of courses? How do you ensure that the academic content is not getting lost in a very practical course?
Well, it's of course always, you have to always, of course, base what you do in the current state of our knowledge base, that is our research. So it's really important that you not just invent something because you feel like it or it sounds good or whatever. You really have to base it in current state research. I would say this is not necessarily more dangerous in a more practical course like the one I was talking about than a more theoretical course. It may also be that we, for the sake of convenience in a theoretical course, just reproduce the same old thing that we're used to, and we don't really update ourselves with what's going on in this field, etc., etc. So I would say this is not only a danger in practical courses, but in everything that we do. We continuously have to be aware of what is going on in the research field and relate to that. So what I have done when I have developed this program, I have always been able to motivate every step in this program based on current state of research. So when anyone has asked, well, why do you do this? Do you have a sound basis for this? I have been able to show that. And I think this is, of course, always important so that we do not run the risk of just doing things because we like them, but what is really the current state of knowledge within our fields.
Thank you. I think that this presentation have awakened many questions and also inspiration for thinking of new types of courses. Is there any questions or comments still? Shepard, do you want to say something?
Yes, one more thing that I wanted to ask is, since this course is very international, it covers all corners of the world. I should say students come from many different parts of the world. Now, due to that, these students will have different backgrounds. Do you have any challenges of students who come expecting to be taught?
Yes, of course. So it's a heterogenic group of students. They come from different parts of the world. They have different culture, religious, socioeconomic, historical backgrounds. Also, they come from different educational backgrounds, of course. In the first year of this program, I was approached by a really worried student, a girl. She was really, really worried. And she told me, Ulrika, what we do in class, it's so much fun. It's so interesting. I learned so much, but when will we start studying? So what we did in the program did not really, meet her expectations of what studying is. In her idea, studying means you sit alone in your room, you read books, and it's boring and it's difficult and you're on your own. So yes, they have many different expectations of what education is. So what I try to do is to, when they come to the first course, we discuss this working environment that we will have together, this education, this program, this pedagogy, how we do things here, what their expectations are, etc., etc. This is often for students the first time that they discuss these things. And this is a master program, so they have been studying for a long time, but most of them have never talked about this with the teacher, with their fellow students either, about what is education, what is pedagogy, how do we do this? So in the program, I would say there is many levels of learning going on at the same time. So we have about the subject matter, and then we have the meeting of this heterogenic group, and then it is this understanding of what learning is and what knowledge is and why you do this and how we do it here. So it's a multi-layered learning that is going on at the same time. And again, I think this is also a challenge for our examination system, that it's only one layer of this that we can examine, and that is kind of the knowledge that they get. But there's so much more going on. Of course, this is a challenge in the teaching situation. So you have to try to find ways of dealing with this multi-layered learning, and to find your own tips and tricks on how to work with this. And this is a continuous process for you as a teacher to improve in this.
Yes, because in the Change Project course, we talk a lot about lifelong learning, and we also talk a lot about making students take charge of their own learning. And this is one example of how this can happen. The real challenge is on how to start this to happen, because once it has started, I think once the students have taken ownership of their own learning, then the learning begins and the situation begins to be less hard. But when it starts, I have found that many teachers have really found it very difficult to get students started. I can give an example of one group of teachers that I was working with at university. When it came to evaluation, there were two evaluations that came out quite distinctly. One evaluation was saying that, our teacher has not taught us. Our teacher has just been there. We have done all the learning by ourselves, but we have learned quite a lot. And they were actually saying that, we don't think this teacher should be paid at all because he didn't do any work. He didn't do any work. But the end comment was really good, that we learned so much that we would not have learned if she had taught us. So that's where the crux of the matter was. So by pinning their teacher down, they were actually saying she is a good teacher.
Yes. But I think this also starts with your own understanding of yourself as a teacher. So as long as you see your work as teaching people things, you will not come to a situation where the students take ownership over what they do. But you need to also have the courage to let go of that responsibility. And that can be very scary, because if you're not in charge of a situation, if you're not defining what they should learn, unexpected things can happen. It becomes a situation of uncertainty. And who are you as a teacher in this situation? It's scaring, because in a sense, your identity becomes, upside down in this. So I understand it is can be a challenging process for the teacher. But so far, I think at least the students seem to be more comfortable with this maybe than some teachers. So, and I think a course like the one I described, where students are working with real problems with real stakeholders, is a great way for students to take ownership over the learning, because they see that this is for real. This is not just something we do in school. This is real. So they take responsibility for their own learning. That's also a reason why it is, I would say, important to, maybe all kind of courses to have this component, because it can really make students take responsibility over their own learning situation.
Yes, also as teachers, sometimes we assume too much of the students, because the students have to be empowered in order to be able to do that, because we cannot assume that all students will be able to take charge of their own learning. They have to be empowered. That's the role of us now as co-learners together with the students. How do we empower students to take charge of their own learning? Because we cannot expect them to do that if they do not have the competence to self-learn.
And students, they come to university after already a long life of experience of the school. So we have already since a young age learned them what to expect from school. So if you want to transform that, it is something you really have to, put effort into.
Yeah.
Thank you. Now I think our time comes to an end for today, but I have here received also very thank you messages to you, Ulrika, encouraging, great presentation and insights. Thank you for sharing your experience, so inspiring, and so on. So I think here are a lot of inspired people out in the Baltic Sea region.
Thank you very much, and thank you for your many comments. And you have my email if you want to get in contact. And
thank you, Ulrika, and thank you all the audience for this afternoon. We have the fourth and last webinar for this row exactly after a month, in the 9th of March, when David Kronlid, Associate Professor at Department of Education and part of, among others, the Uppsala Center for Sustainable Development and Svedest, will give a keynote. Thank you, all of you.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.